Now you might be wondering, what's the best way to do the carnivore diet for fat loss? What do you need to think about? Are carbohydrates important? Is dairy important? How much these things leverage our fat loss or fat gain results? The carnivore diet offers lots of benefits for health and performance, improving digestion, reduced inflammation, enhanced mental clarity, increased energy, much, much more. But one of the most common reasons that people start the carnivore diet is for the body composition effects. Now, in my opinion, a lot of the community have got a lot of the stuff regarding fat loss quite wrong. I'm going to explain why, given my experience of speaking with over 400 carnivores on the carnivore diet online over the space of about 18 months. Now, I want to preface this video with everything I say in this video being strictly based on my experience, opinion, anecdote, and also quite a bit of science that's come around in recent emerging literature. Now, first thing, the most important thing above all for body composition is improving your diet. Now, I'd say it counts for about 85% of your fat loss or muscle gain results. So meaning you need to be looking at the diet as the pillar, the absolute most important thing before trying to achieve anything in terms of body composition on the carnivore diet. Now, the second most important thing is probably going to be the exercise aspect of it. So that means getting the right exposure, intensity, difficulty, frequency, sets, reps, all that kind of stuff in the gym. Now, to sort all of that out, book a training plan with me, book a consultation. We'll go through it and go for the best plan for you. I do not consult people through the comment section of my videos. Key to the carnivore diet is that it's quite easy to adhere to once you get around the idea that you can't eat sugar or carbohydrates. It seems to normalize energy, normalize hormones, improve inflammation, reduce digestion issues, and all sorts of things just like that. So this makes the diet a lot easier to adhere to because you've got less to worry about, less foods to take in, less things to track, to count. Therefore, you're less impacted by the food focus and all the extra stuff that you have to think about in order to achieve your body composition outcomes. This is why I believe the carnivore diet is the best case scenario for fat loss. You can't beat it. Gives you all the things your body needs, the protein, the fat, your hormones are balanced, and everything just sits right when you're trying to maximize your outcomes in terms of body composition. Now, there's a lot of nuances about the carnivore diet. What kind of proportion do you need to have for meat? Fish, eggs, dairy? Do you just do this? Do you just do the strict? Now, what is the most important thing that I seem to notice people doing? Now, I'd say out of about 400 people I've worked with so far, I'd say 3 of them follow the strict carnivore diet, meaning beef, lamb, salt, water, which is obviously very few. Yet I've met hundreds of people that have achieved their goals using a diet which includes dairy, believe it or not. And if you can't tolerate it, don't have it, obviously. But for the vast majority of people, I don't see it really significantly impacting fat loss. And that's assuming they're doing it the right way. So broadly speaking, I see people getting the best results in terms of their carnivore diet experience by following a diet which contains roughly 70% ruminant meat by macronutrient value. Then the last 10, 20, 30% can be made up of dairy, eggs, fish, organs, bone broth, things that you can tolerate, things that you enjoy. And I wouldn't deliberately omit them because someone else online told you that you should do it because it seems to impact fat loss. There's evidence to support the claim either way, so we don't know exactly the truth. But I can tell you dairy does not absolutely destroy or torment your fat loss goals. So what do I say eggs? The steak and eggs diet, Vince Dronda, bodybuilders of the past of the golden era, they seem to do that and they had immense success. Eggs contain choline, vitamin A, which is retinol, biotin, all sorts of useful cofactors and vitamins and minerals your body absolutely does require. The next thing is the fish. Lots of omega-3, great for brain health, great for reducing inflammation, great for actually digestive function. There's quite firm literature on suggesting that it can improve the endothelial function of the digestive system. Now, dairy contains a good amount of calcium, vitamin K, particularly if you get the raw kind, so I strongly suggest people buy that if at all. Back to the point on fish. Is fish going to cause mercury poisoning? Well, I'm yet to see it. I have experienced mercury poisoning myself and I know what it's like. In my experience, you have to be eating around 5 cans of tuna per day for a period of about 4 to 5 months to really experience it. Now, individual results may vary, but that's what happened to me. Eating the smaller oily fish seems to be not as impactful in terms of causing mercury poisoning or other heavy metal toxicity. Remember, with everything I say in this video, it's about what works for you. You don't have to do what I say because it's what most people seem to find useful. If what you're doing right now does work, don't change it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Now let's talk about exercise, the second most important thing. What do you need to do? How much? All that sort of kind of thing. Well, I'll say that it's not the main driver of fat loss, but it's very helpful for attaining muscle mass or even increasing muscle mass, which seems to be the main determinant of your basal metabolic rate, i.e. the amount of energy they expend when you're sat down still doing nothing, which for the most part people generally tend to do. It seems to increase muscle mass, improve insulin sensitivity, boost your metabolism, reduce your stress, and improve your mood. All key things which seem to really positively impact your fat loss results. You don't have to spend hours in a gym doing loads of cardio for months upon months on end to get these results. Just a small bit of physical activity each day, just walking the dog, going for a swim, hiking, going out for a short walk around the shops with your friends, that's enough to do the job. It depends on what your baseline is. If you're very active already, yeah, you may have to increase it a bit more. But outside of that, it's absolutely not necessary to be doing 10 hours of cardio per week by any stretch. Now, in contrast to this, too much cardio can elevate cortisol responses. So that means you're going to be in a stressed, hyper-alert, hyperactive, kind of fight or flight state, which is not optimal for fat loss. Now, this can also impair recovery, which means the exercise you're doing, if it's resistance training, will be less significant. You won't be able to train as hard, all that kind of stuff. You won't sleep as well. Your hunger signaling will be inappropriate, which means you'll be eating more food than what you need because you've stressed your body out, which I see people doing time and time again. I think most people can get all the results they want in as little as 4 hours per week in the gym. That would include a warm-up, a cool-down if you're doing it, and also any additional activity which might include a short cycle on the bicycle or something like that. If you're going to do any deliberate cardiovascular activity, meaning basically anything where you're doing something steady state for the most part, I would try and do it outside if I'm honest, to get the benefit of the extra sunlight. Even on a cloudy day, it seems to positively impact your circadian rhythm, which is very impactful towards your fat loss results. Remember, if you sleep well, you recover even better. That means your efforts will be put to good use. So you're not spinning your wheels, trying to do the same thing and just not get the results. So with this being said, I want you to absolutely focus on resistance training. This should make up the bulk majority of your exercise endeavors. You don't need to be doing hours again, like I said. If you're doing maybe 2 sessions per week, half an hour, that's better than nothing. I'd say broadly speaking, 4 times per week is about as much as anyone wants to do. So you might even choose to split up in a way that's 3 times gym sessions, maybe 1 time a cardio session, so a swim, hike, something like that. It doesn't have to be absolutely intensive. And just remember, if you're trying to maintain the end point of your goal, you're going to have to be able to sustain what you're doing. Now, I'd argue 10 hours of exercise a week is not sustainable for most people. And you're basically going to get to a point where your metabolic rate will begin to actually slow down. Now, when I say this, yeah, your body will still try its best to stay lean and all that sort of thing. But you're going to have a really hard time doing it because you're not going to be able to sleep at night. You're going to be in a chronically stressed state. And it's really going to piss you off. Trust me, I've been there. I used to do 15 hours a week of exercise plus, and it did not help my fat loss results at all. I was a bit more lean back then, but per unit of time, per hour, per minute spent in the gym, I was wasting my time. I didn't get double the results for, double the activity and exercise. It doesn't work out that way. There seems to be a rate limiting factor in terms of how much output you can do and what results you can get from it. And like I said, 4 times per week is absolutely sufficient for most people. Now, resistance training, how would you do it? What would you do? Well, I suggest you check my playlists out, which are extremely informative. Lots of narration type videos where I talk you through different exercises, how to do them, what I'm thinking about, all the cues. And I strongly recommend people generally tend to stick to machines. Now, people will say, oh, but free weights work your stabilizer muscles more. We can work your stabilizer muscles more by doing stabilizer muscle exercises. So you just add in a lower back extension, for example. Perhaps you do, an abdominal plank or a crunch. That will do the job. You don't need all this extra fancy stuff. Both super ball push-ups on, one hand with, jumping, bouncing squats and all this sort of stuff. You don't need to do that. You just need to keep your muscles under tension for a consistent range of motion in a safe way that you can standardize and keep the same, and just steadily but surely increase the intensity and the effort level that goes into each session, week by week, month by month. Therefore, you should focus on progressive overload, doing more intensity, but not more activity. But remember, work smarter, not harder. You don't need to be doing hours upon hours in the gym. It tends to send people backwards, especially women. Women do not seem to tolerate lots of time in the gym, especially not the ones that I speak to that seem to have difficulty with hormones, leptin, insulin levels, sleep, all that kind of stuff, thyroid output. There seems to be a deleterious effect when it comes to doing too much activity on all of these hormones. I suggest people do any additional activity that might include walking as far away from the resistance training sessions as possible. Now, that means, for example, you do resistance training 3 or 4 times a week. I don't know, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Sunday. Maybe the other days just go for a 10, 15, 20-minute walk. That's absolutely helpful to increase insulin sensitivity, reduce inflammation, improve sleep, improve digestion. You don't need to be doing lots, just enough to get you out and about, getting some sunlight each day. Now, I'll preface what I've just said with the more you do, the more you have to recover, and the more diligent and meticulous you need to be in order to get the results you want. You're not going to be spending 10 hours a week in the gym, then sleeping 4 hours per night and feeling good for it. Your body will stop you down the line. Eventually, at some point, it will. Now, let's talk about carbohydrates in the diet. This is a key point which a lot of people don't focus on. Now, they think, I can eat 50 grams of carbs a day and maintain ketosis. Well, ketosis isn't a goal of the carnivore diet. The goal of the carnivore diet is to reduce inflammation, reduce leaky gut or intestinal permeability, find the foods that increase nutrient assimilation and absorption, and just find a way to live stress-free without trying to create all these keto snacks and all this other crap that your body doesn't need. So the carbohydrate side of it, well, we don't need any, but I'll say largely speaking, people tend to thrive best on a carnivore diet that has less than 30 grams of carbohydrates a day. Now, if you're heavily muscled, you're physically active to a large extent, to a large degree, male, perhaps, then yeah, you can probably do about 50 grams per day and not really suffer too much for it. It's not absolutely optimal, but it's certainly possible to still lose fat and reach your goals. We can get glucose from non-carbohydrate sources. These include fats and proteins, lactates. We can convert these things into the glucose that we need by supply, by demand, as much as we really need to do our stuff during the day. And that's a process called gluconeogenesis. I'll also link that video above. Now, when you eat carbohydrates, your blood glucose levels rise and your pancreas secretes insulin, which is a hormone which helps your cells take up glucose and use it for energy to store as glycogen or fat. However, insulin also inhibits lipolysis, which is the breakdown of fat for energy, or ketogenesis, which is the production of ketones, which are an alternative fuel source for your brain and body muscles, especially when glucose levels within the diet are scarce. I would suggest that the individual's response to carbohydrate ingestion can vary, and is very much a play it by ear kind of thing. Now, just do what you can do, try and get it down to 0 if you can, but if it's not possible for you, maybe just try it at a later date. There's no need to rush these things. Now, the overall macronutrient content of a diet is the most significant thing in terms of body composition outcomes. If you're wondering why I say that, it's because it's very finely tuned and explained and basically studied, researched in something called the mass balance model. And I made a pretty handy video which explains that all above. Now, it doesn't come down to calories in, calories out. That idea has been thoroughly debunked on my channel, Bart Kay's channel, and numerous other people online. And it's a very lackluster, third-class way of measuring what your body's taking each day. The best way to track food intake is to measure food grams. So 500 grams of beef mince is going to be 500 grams of beef mince, or ground beef if you're from the US. Now, if you add in 4 eggs to that, those 4 eggs are always going to be 4 eggs. You're very pretty damn sure it's a good way of measuring what you're taking in when you're weighing on a scale and you're eating it. You can't go too far wrong there. Now, when you have approximate measures for something, i.e. a calorie, it kind of throws things off and you can't keep track of it because you're not a closed thermodynamic system, which is how calories were measured and came about. We're an open thermodynamic system, meaning we have the thermic effect of food, hormones, insulin, leptin, ghrelin, cortisol, growth hormone, all sorts of different things which can impact how you assimilate different nutrients in the diet. So you manipulate the diet in terms of the food grams, not the caloric amount. On a carnivorous diet, we actually consume very low amounts of carbohydrates, if not 0. I'll say that a lot of people have success with the carnivore diet due to mitigating what is known as the carbohydrate insulin model, in that we ingest carbohydrates, our insulin goes up, our breakdown of fatty acids or adipose fat goes down. Therefore, we've kind of halted the fat loss process. Now, it's not impossible to lose fat with carbohydrates. It just seems to be a little bit more difficult for the vast majority of people. Now, if someone was to look at calories as a measurement and say they had 100 grams of carbohydrates in a diet per day, I would say that the average person on 2,000 calories that's maintaining their weight on that amount of food would actually find that they're only able to eat about 1,600 if they add in that 100 grams of carbohydrates versus 0. So if you think about it, what I'm saying here is, I believe high carbohydrate intake in the diet, or certainly more than 0, seems to impact the calories in, calories out model by about 20%. So you're going to get more food, more bang for your buck, more ATP per gram of food if you actually follow a carnivore diet that's lower in carbohydrates. Now, as I've said in different videos before, we don't consume calories. We consume mass of food. I've done lots of videos on this. I'll put a Seco playlist in the description below and just above here, so you can click on that one. Check out what I'm saying about calories and how the best way is to approximate food intake. Now, where does dairy come into it? Everyone sort of says, oh, it's popular that, we need to get rid of dairy. Oh, why aren't you losing fat? On the forums line, it's because you're eating dairy. If you're eating that, cut it out. Oh, no, the main reason is because you're eating too much food. It just so happens that dairy can be hyperpalatable. So we know it's got something called casomorphins in it, which I must admit, the evidence we do have to support is the idea that it's absolutely making us fat or making us overeat is quite inconclusive, but people tend to overeat it. That's just, to me, for a lot of people that have an issue with, they can't moderate, which is most people have to abstain. We have a lot of difficulty trying to moderate dairy intake in terms of reducing the food grams that they're taking in. Now, there is, of course, an element of lactose, which is a sugar, and it converts to glucose downstream. Yeah, that can impact the results. It can come into the carbohydrate insulin model, but it's not the absolute most deleterious thing for fat loss. The most deleterious thing for fat loss in terms of a carnivore diet or any other diet is simply eating too much food. It's not the dairy that's the main culprit. Now, it is a culprit, but it's not the main one. Now, to kind of headline what I've just said about all this, putting all this stuff in the video together, I'd say that the total macronutrient intake is the key in terms of affecting body composition outcomes. And that means you're going to get a good amount of protein, which is less fattening. Then you got some fat as well, which is great. Now, that has a satiety signaling effect, which is great. The carbohydrates seem to be hyperpalatable, generally speaking, so you can't really moderate them. So a protein, essential nutrient, fat, essential nutrient diet is going to be key. And trying to get those protein grams bang on, the fat grams bang on, for your results is absolutely of critical importance. Now, for a video which I highlight explaining how to do all this stuff, where to start on a carnivore diet, I'm going to link that just above here. You'll find it most useful. It's probably the most informative video on carnivore diet macros online that I've seemed to come across anyway. Over time, what you'll experience is that you do not have to absolutely change or track your macros. You might just reach your goals just by not doing it. This does happen sometimes, but it seems to be less common than not. It seems to be that people achieve the best results, measure things. Remember, what can be measured can be managed. The next most important thing is the exercise level. It means the total energy expenditure over a given period of time. Remember, just doing the right amount to sustain or improve muscle mass, stimulate metabolic rate, and also reduce fat mass. That's the key here. Now, the third thing is the carbohydrate intake. Remember what I said about the carbohydrate insulin model. That's very important for impacting fat loss. You want to get your carbs ideally below 50, or even better yet, below 30 for most people. That's going to do a good job of reducing your fat gain, or at least even trying to get rid of the fat that you do have if it's in excess. Now, the fourth most important thing when it comes to the carnivore diet and fat loss seems to be the dairy consumption. This points to the idea of the hyperpalatability, the carbohydrate insulin model again, and just the way it can be addictive for most people. Remember, if something is hyperpalatable, it's quite difficult to stop eating it. So look at that one down the line if you've got all the other things ticked off. So there we have it. My experience as a carnivore body composition coach working with over 400 people over the span of about 18 months. These are the most important things that I think affect body fat loss and body recomposition. I have to preface this video with, I am not your coach. I do not offer consultations through my comment section of my videos. I'm just putting the free information out there that doesn't give me much money at all, but it's out there to help people because I see a lot of bollocks going on online. Dairy is not going to make you fat unless you eat too much of it. Let's be real here. Now, if you like this video, do me a massive favour, smash the like button. I'm keen to know in the comments below as well, what are your goals? What does your current macronutrient intake look like? And what I'll do is I'll link all the other videos and playlists that I mentioned in this video just below. Check those out if you want a bit more information, a bit more solidarity and confinement in what you're trying to do, how you're going to achieve it. And all else fails, you don't know what you're doing, this free information doesn't do the job for you, feel free to book a consultation at compositionconsultant.com. Many thanks for watching. Cheers. Build muscle and lose fat on the carnivore diet.